Hello, my name is Ernest Klimek. I'm here to talk about my first research assignment, coding in a better language. Okay, so the basic idea, simplification of programming has happened since programming has existed. We always try to make things simpler, easier to use. Higher level technology is everywhere. Everyone has a smartphone, everyone has a tablet, and people don't take full advantage of that. So the main goal of the research is the development of a programming language that anyone can use. It seems that natural and fitting is everyday speech. Okay, the vast majority of people own smart devices. I've gone over some of this before. This research will create a language that anyone can understand, at any experience level. We want master programmers to be able to use this language because it'll be the best programming language. It'll be the easiest for them to do what they want. But we want the beginners, the people who have no programming experience whatsoever, to be able to do anything they want with it. They write anything that will improve their daily lives. We want to improve the life of everybody by making it so that they can use their technology to the fullest. Okay, so here's a bit of background on different programming languages. Okay, so machines, they use machine language. This is what the actual computers use. It's a bunch of zeros and ones. It's all binary, and it's very hard for people to understand what's going on because there's so many zeros and ones, and you just get lost in it. So above that, people created assembly language, and assembly language, it allowed programmers to tell a machine how to do a certain task. So you would be telling it, move this file over here, and you'd have to input every single thing one at a time. It was very slow, and it was still kind of complicated because there was still a lot of text. You had to describe every single thing you did. So above that, people created high-level languages. And high-level languages allow a programmer to tell a machine what they want the machine to do. Okay, so this simplified things, but it with a lot of baggage. It has a lot of complicated terminology. It builds upon these two more complicated sections, and in doing that, it becomes very hard to just become a programmer. You can't wake up and become a programmer. It takes so much practice. And that's why the goal of our new language, a higher level language, is to teach a machine to understand what it should do. So the onus would be on the machine. You would be able to tell the machine what you want, and then it would understand what you want. You wouldn't have to know complicated syntax or semantic languages. It would just know what you want it to do. Okay, so our objectives. Design a programming language that allows an unexperienced programmer to create their own program without any prior knowledge. Okay, so, this is kind of straightforward. Discover any and all gaps which may exist between high-level languages and everyday speech. So we want to look at how people talk, the ways they talk, and try to implement everyday speech into a language. That way, beginners can just write how they feel or what they want, and it would come across. Examine situations where things are difficult to program, but extremely easy to do as a human. Okay, something like this would be making a sandwich. It's very easy to make a sandwich. You know how to make a sandwich, but you have problems trying to tell a robot how to make a sandwich. It doesn't understand the concepts. It becomes a very complicated thing. But for humans, it's easy. So we want to look at those things, figure out why those gaps are there, and how to close those gaps. Designing a programming language that allows experienced programmers the most efficient and easy-to-use method for designing their own programs. That's what this language is all about. It's all about teaching a machine to understand what you want it to do, and to put the onus on the machine and not on the programmer. And then we want to implement this programming language into an application-based software. We want to get it onto Android and iPhone devices and allow it to reach as many people as possible. All right, how are we going to do these things? The methodology. Well, we're going to start by surveying large numbers of people and asking them, how we can make programming easier. It's a great place to start. You get as much information, different perspectives from people that you wouldn't normally expect, and different viewpoints. We're going to look at the entry level languages and try to understand what makes them easy to program. And we're going to build off those concepts, try to implement some of those concepts into what we are making our language. We're going to examine the structure of the most commonly spoken languages today, like Chinese, English, and look at those structures and make a programming language with those structures to just simplify the process for people who speak different languages. It'll become more natural, more intuitive, a process of writing a code, and then teaching a machine to understand what it should do instead of a programmer telling the machine what to do. Here's our budget. As you can see from our budget, almost all of it is in before any development has begun. Okay, so we start out with the planning, prototyping, refining, development, testing, and then some resource and registration fees. But the main portion, this whole almost 3/4, is just planning, prototyping, and refinement. We want to ensure that before the product is made, it's the best product possible. We don't want to start something that we know won't live up to our expectations. Then after that, I mean, there would be a little bit of development costs. And then after that, just mostly testing. So development is really a small portion of what we're going to do, because so much is going to go into making sure the product is what we want it to be. Here's a timeline. You can see, again, the vast majority is planning, prototyping, refinement, testing, really not that much. Development a little bit bigger. But the main, what our expected timeline for this, about 2 years. And the whole entire first year really is just going to be planning. We want to make sure that we create the thing that meets our expectations. We don't want to start on a project that won't live up to what we want. We want this to be usable by everybody, and that's the best way to do that, is just really get the planning, prototyping, refinement will be the first 16 months, and then after that we'll start development. And we really don't expect to be developing very long, about 5-6 months, and then move on to testing to finish the product. And some of the things that happen in these steps I've gone over a little bit earlier. Research existing languages, research areas where current programming languages fail. For prototyping, we'll design our initial idea and then refine it over time. Development obviously would be creating the project, and then for testing, we're just searching for any flaws or bugs that may exist in the product before we release it. All right, and then in conclusion, most people on smart devices, most people have a smartphone, most people have a tablet. These devices are capable of much more than most people are using them for. We want to make it so that people can get the full use out of these devices they carry with them everywhere. And the results of this research will create language that's simple and intuitive for everyone to understand, and people will be able to improve their lives by creating their own custom software that meets their daily needs. All right, thank you very much.